Hi everyone! Today I'm going to be making a video which I promised a long time ago. It's based off of a blog post which I originally published on January 15th, 2018 called An Important Turning Point in My Writing of Antagonists. And this was a really big, happy surprise to me, learning how to write antagonists as more well-rounded, three-dimensional characters without, of course, feeling, oh, I sympathize with the antagonist and I'm going to write them as the secret good guy or good woman. But it didn't, change the antagonist being the antagonist. It just, changed how I learned how to write and depict them and such in a better, well-rounded way. And it came from one of the least expected sources you could probably ever imagine. Probably sometime in the spring of '98, towards the end of the Civil War unit in my American history class, our teacher announced we were going to have a mock funeral for President Lincoln. She was going to pass around a bowl or hat with slips of paper, and we'd have to deliver a speech from the point of view of whomever we drew. I sat on the front left-hand side of the room, near the door, so I drew first. Of all the names in that container to draw from, I ended up with the one name probably no one wants to draw. Who wants to play the assassin? Particularly when that person assassinated one of the most venerated people in American history and one of my own favorite presidents to this day. I was loath to give my name up when the teacher was asking us who drew whom. When it finally came out that I'd drawn Booth, the teacher's body language and involuntary little noise made her own reaction obvious. In short, she knew what kinds of interests I had, my writing style, how advanced I was in my study of history, and how I wasn't exactly a typical teen. Don't ask how obsessed I used to be with President Lincoln and his sons Willie and Tad. He's still one of my favoriteest presidents and people in American history, though I don't think he was a demigod who did no wrong ever. Then I began researching my eulogy, written in Booth's point of view. While I didn't start seeing him as an unfairly vilified hero like who would, I did gain a deeper understanding of his motivations, background, and beliefs. I even used some of the language I would never use myself, like an anti-Polish epithet, in the interest of authentically capturing his voice and the types of things he honestly would have said. And I'm pretty sure, given what, is going on in many schools these days, that wouldn't have been allowed, either my speech in particular or the whole, speaking from the point of view of, other people, because, oh no, you're saying things that aren't woke or whatever, that, even though you're actually authentically capturing a person's historical voice, how someone actually spoke, and you even have evidence of this person saying this in letters and diary entries and stuff. I'm so glad, I came up, I was born and went to school and such when I was, my generation, instead of these kids now, you just have to walk on eggshells and they're terrified of being canceled if, they say or do or write the so-called wrong thing. But again, that's a whole rant for another topic. And no, I am not conservative at all. I am one of many people who is a traditional old school leftist who is against woke ideology. Believe it or not, there are many of us and we really do exist, but rant over. The day of the mock funeral, I dressed in my father's old wedding suit and may have worn a man's hat as well. Unfortunately, there aren't any pictures of that. It's so fun wearing men's suits. Someday I hope to have a men's style suit tailored for a woman's body. There are a few companies specializing in such clothes, and I wore that outfit for one Purim party in the past as well. That was really so fun, particularly when people see you. Oh wow, you look great. Oh, I would never have. Well, obviously you can tell our species is primed to instantly tell if someone is male or female based on the face or body, but they were oh wow, you look so good as a man, this is a great costume for you, things like that. And I've said in so many videos, I've always been very tomboyish and gender defined, with obviously a couple of things. I love jewelry, which isn't particularly masculine or stereotypically male coded in current Western society. One of the reasons I love Halloween and Purim so much is because when you really think about it, all clothing, makeup, and accessories are essentially drag, a costume, an identity you choose to put onto the world. It's fun to play with an alternate identity a few times a year. I really got into my portrayal of Booth. I had to resist the urge to start interacting with other people in character or to say something like, if anyone moves, Mary Todd gets it. The teacher said I made a really strong case for Booth. I imagine she may have been surprised I got so into character, both in the written and oral speech. So many other people would have taken the easy way out by casting him as a one-dimensionally evil villain who acted out of a vacuum. This carried through into the way I write my antagonists, like Boris Alexandrovich Malenkov, one of my all-time, favorite antagonists I've ever written, Mr. Seward, Misha Godunov, Anastasia Voroshilova, who's not like really an antagonist when it comes down. She does like frequently show glimmers of like human emotion and sympathy and intelligence, but she's definitely done a number of like antagonistic things throughout her history. And Mrs. Troy. All these characters truly believe they're in the right and started down that path for a reason. The sympathetic characters are the ones who seem misguided to them. Even minor or secondary antagonists or villains I have created aren't one-dimensionally evil and cartoonish. They have distinguishing features and are written like real people. Antagonists like Irma Smart or Mrs. Green, whose entire purpose is to be antagonistic and unsympathetic, and they never ever change, exist to make people's lives very, very miserable. But there's still a general concept of the background and motivations which led them to those paths. They also bring a lot of great dark comedy. I absolutely love, dark macabre humor. Antagonists are fun to write. When the first book you ever read at 3 years old is the adult, uncensored edition of Grimm's fairy tales, you know early on real life isn't flowers, puppies, rainbow, and glitter. As much as I enjoy well-deserved happy endings, I'm naturally drawn to the dark macabre side of writing, and I love writing themes and scenes and episodes and stuff and periods of history and such that are very what many people would consider dark and depressing. Oh, why would you waste your time or wallow in human misery? Read about that and watch films and documentaries voluntarily about the Holocaust or the Armenian genocide or the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and just terrible things like that throughout history. It's just because I'm genuinely drawn to it. I know some people might think that makes me kind of jacked in the head, but it's just I read Grimm's fairy tales for the first time when I was 3 years old, not all the way through at that age, but it just left a really big indelible impression on me. Life isn't always good, and there's so much dramatic and emotional and human potential and dramatic tension and all this other interesting really good stuff when you're writing about this, instead of, oh, Jane and Jack met when they were 5 years old and they began dating and were sweethearts from the time they were 13, and they married as soon as they were out of high school, and then they immediately had a perfect family, and they had 5 wonderful children, and there was never anything bad in their lives, and they always made enough money, and there was never any fighting, and they always got along with the in-laws, and their friends were always good, and nothing bad in their lives ever happened. The end. Who wants to read about that kind of boring milquetoast cod swallop? I want to read books where the happy ever after ending is well deserved. You had to work through a lot of Sturm und Drang to get to it, and there was wondering, oh, will this ever even happen? Oh, they're separated because of the war or something, or they think the other partner is dead, or just terrible things, or they have to immigrate and start over in a new place, or just they lose their house, just things like that, or someone gets sick or injured, or just so many possibilities. And when you're just writing about, oh, sunshine and flowers and rainbow and glitters and puppy and kittens and bunnies, that's boring. That's why I just love writing antagonists. And I always loved the interesting evil characters in soap operas back in the day. I realized the genre of soaps is kind of going the way of the dodo, because their target audience aren't really watching as much as they used to. Women are mostly out in the workforce these days, so they don't have the luxury of sitting around in the afternoon watching 3-4 hours of soap operas or listening to them on the radio, even further back in the day. But I just love the interesting evil characters James Stenbeck and on As the World Turns, and Roger Thorpe on Guiding Light. Those are my 2 favorite soap operas. I really love the CBS soaps much, but the most. But anyway, I love the interesting evil characters on soaps, because they weren't just acting, oh, I'm evil, I'm doing bad things, I'm kidnapping and switching babies and just faking my own death so I can do more revenge behind the scenes and stalking people and trying to murder and all this other stuff. No, you actually understand their motivations and what led them up to that point. It's not saying, oh, I agree with you, oh, that's so cool, I'm awesome, I'm standing up for you, Roger and James, when you're kidnapping your ex-wife, or pretending someone is really not the father and they are, or something like that. It's, oh, I understand what led you to that, and even though I don't agree with you or sympathize with you, I can kind of like get inside your mind and understand the workings of what led you up to that point and why you would want to act like that. And it's like really interesting to see your thought process, even though it's like totally evil, but it's interesting evil, not like psycho evil. So that kind of thing. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider leaving a comment letting me know what your favorite antagonists are in a book or like movie or TV show you've like watched or read over the years, and why you like that person. Or are you a writer yourself? How do you think about like writing antagonists? Was there anything that helped you learn how to write them better? Would you ever play the part of John Wilkes Booth in a mock funeral, or like an act, like a TV show or anything, or a historical movie or anything like that? I really enjoy having conversations with you guys, like, and I really, really do like seeing comments. I know I have a small channel, but like hopefully eventually I'll have like a smaller group of friends who actually belong to on BookTube, instead of feeling like I'm a real outsider in this community. So, and thanks again for watching. I will see you very soon. Bye.